Hi, I'm Michael Polozola with the LSU AgCenter, and today I wanted to give you just a little overview of growing houseplants. Some of the things we're going to discuss in this video are location of where you're growing them, light levels, how to water them, water quality, and even a little bit of what container you can grow them in. There's a lot of things to consider when you're growing houseplants, and one is, where are you going to grow them? So you want to pick an area in your house that has good light. Now, not all of us have good light, but there's ways around that. In my situation here, I get decent light, but I found the plants do much better if I get a plant light and supplement them. Now, if you are going to get a plant light, it's important to consider how long you're going to leave them on. You're going to want to research each of your plants and decide, but in general you can be safe by having them on a timer where they're on 12 hours and off 12 hours. You can modify this seasonally if you want to induce certain things in your house plants like flowering or a dormancy period, but that'll be very plant specific and you'll want to look into that. And part of that with location as well as what surface you want to grow them on. I really like these type of shelving units because I can fit multiple plants in a small area. But if you're just starting, don't feel like you have to start with this, although this is fairly budget friendly. You can even just use a very sunny window sill or an area like that and dip your toes in it, and if you all of a sudden get obsessed with them like I am, then you can expand and get a lot more growing area to that. Growing them, there's lots of different pots you can grow in. I encourage you to try different ones to make it more enjoyable. I like to incorporate some novelty pots in mine, but also consider how what pot you're growing in is going to affect your drainage and evaporation. And part of that is different plants have different demands. In general, most house plants prefer to be a little bit on the dry side. Most people kill their plants by keeping them a tad bit overwatered or in the dark. So I like terracotta for a lot of different plants because it has that wicking effect. Now the only thing is you can get builds up of salt depending on how you water them. So one thing to consider is your water quality. Water quality varies a lot depending on your source of water and where you are in the state. So where I'm located, I'm on well water that is noted for its low salt content and has a very low EC. So it's very conducive, almost perfect for watering plants. I can water them and without a worry of building up any of those things. What can happen long term, say you're on a municipal water source that is a little bit higher in pH, may have more salts in it, you can affect the growing conditions of your plant and they can get a high buildup of salt. And one of the most common symptoms you'll see is browning of your tips. Now that can be other disorders, but the most common one I see with houseplants is that it's heavy water and salt buildup. And what you may want to do with that is flush it out with distilled water and even repot it. And if you find you have had heavy water, you may want to water some of your prized plants exclusively with distilled or purified water. Now there's a difference between distilled and purified. With an option, you're probably going to want to get distilled. Purified often has salts added to it so it tastes better. So aim for distilled. It has less salts in it. Doesn't taste good, but you don't need it to. It's for your plants. And say you're growing carnivorous plants, you're definitely going to want to use exclusively distilled water unless you already know that your water is low in salts. But here we have several different rows and different house plants. So my top row here, I have a lot of my plants that prefer to stay real dry, and I let them dry out in between waterings. And they really appreciate that more of my succulent plant material, as opposed to on the shelves further down, I have some carnivorous plants, which like the opposite. A lot of these actually prefer to stay very moist. So I water them using the tray method, where a lot of times I fill up the tray at various heights to ensure that they have a constant supply of water. But ultimately, when you're just starting growing house plants, the main things you want to consider are location, light, and water.